The diner was loud with the clinking of plates and the hum of conversations, but in the corner booth sat a young girl no older than 17, her eyes fixed on her cup of coffee that had long gone cold, her legs stiff beneath the table where a metal prosthetic peeked out just slightly. She hated when people noticed, hated the way whispers always followed her like shadows, but tonight she just wanted to eat in peace. The laughter came before the sting, harsh and sharp like broken glass, a group of boys no older than 20 swaggering past her table, their eyes landing on her prosthetic with cruel delight. "Shut it, pegleg." One of them sneered, his hand slapping her across the back of the head as the others laughed, loud enough for the whole diner to hear. The girl froze, her hands trembling around the cup, her chest tight with the humiliation that burned hotter than the sting of his palm. She didn't speak, she never did, because experience had taught her that silence was sometimes safer, but silence didn't stop them. One leaned down too close, his smirk dripping poison as he added, "Bet you can't even walk straight, huh? Must be hard not having a real leg." The laughter roared again, and for a moment she wished she could melt into the seat, vanish, disappear from their cruel eyes. The waitress behind the counter opened her mouth, as if to say something but faltered when the boys' presence filled the room like a storm, their arrogance daring anyone to interfere. The girl's eyes watered, her throat dry, and just as she thought the night couldn't feel any longer, the sound of heavy boots against the linoleum cut through the diner like a thunderclap. Heads turned. The bell above the door jingled, and in came a group of bikers, leather vests patched with colors, broad shoulders, and faces weathered by life and roads most people never dared to travel. They moved with the kind of quiet authority that made the diner suddenly fall silent, the boys' laughter choking in their throats. The leader, a man with a gray beard and eyes that saw everything, paused mid-step, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on the trembling girl and the sneering boys beside her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "What did you just call her?" he asked, his tone low, calm, but carrying the weight of 1,000 storms. The boys shifted uneasily, their earlier bravado faltering as the bikers spread across the room like shadows filling every corner. One of the bullies, trying to salvage his pride, scoffed. "Just a joke, man, no harm." The bearded biker stepped closer until the boy had to tilt his head up to meet his gaze, and for the first time, the bully's smirk faltered. "Slapping a girl is no joke," the biker said. His voice was even, but the menace beneath it was undeniable. Mocking someone for something they can't control isn't a joke. It's cowardice. The largest of the bikers, a mountain of a man with tattoos running down his arms, leaned against the counter, his arms crossed, eyes locked on the boys. "You think you're tough picking on someone who can't fight back? Try it with me." Silence thickened the air, and for the first time, the girl looked up. Her wide eyes flickered from one biker to the next, disbelief warring with gratitude. The boys exchanged nervous glances, their earlier dominance slipping through their fingers. One muttered, "Let's go," tugging at his friend's sleeve, but the leader of the bikers wasn't done. "No," he said firmly, "not until you apologize." The word hung heavy in the air, a command rather than a request. The bullies stammered, their faces pale under the weight of a dozen unblinking eyes. Finally, one mumbled, "Sorry," barely audible, louder. The biker demanded, "Look her in the eye." Their pride cracked, their bravado shattered, and one by one they muttered their apologies, their voices trembling as they forced themselves to meet the girl's gaze. She sat frozen, her heart pounding, a part of her wanting to shrink away, another part whispering that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as invisible as she thought. When the boys finally slunk out of the diner, their laughter gone, their swagger deflated, the room exhaled the breath it had been holding. The bikers didn't cheer, didn't gloat. They simply turned to the girl, the bearded leader pulling out the chair across from her. He set down his gloves, his voice soft now, the storm in him quieting to a breeze. "You okay, sweetheart?" She swallowed hard, nodding, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't expect anyone to." Her words faltered, but the biker smiled gently. "You don't have to fight alone. Not when men like that think cruelty makes them strong. Real strength," he said, tapping his chest, is knowing when to stand up for someone who can't. The waitress, braver now, placed a slice of pie in front of the girl, courtesy of the house. The bikers ordered their meals, their voices filling the diner with laughter that was warm, not cruel, wrapping the space in a strange kind of safety. The girl sat there quietly, but inside something shifted. For years she had carried her prosthetic like a burden, a mark that made her different, weaker in the eyes of those too blind to see her worth. But tonight, strangers had shown her that she wasn't broken, wasn't alone. The slap still stung, the words still echoed, but they were drowned out by something stronger. The image of rough men in leather standing between her and cruelty, not because they had to, but because it was right. When she finally left the diner, the night air crisp against her face, one of the bikers held the door for her, tipping his head with respect. "Keep walking tall, peg leg or not," he said with a grin that wasn't mocking but proud. For the first time in a long time, she smiled, small but real, and walked into the night not with shame, but with a flicker of strength she hadn't known she still carried. Life has a way of testing the ones who already carry burdens heavier than most, and sometimes those tests come in cruel forms, like laughter, slaps, and words meant to wound. But hidden inside every test is a truth, that the world still has people who will stand up when others choose to look away. And the night in the diner proved it when the young girl with the prosthetic leg, who thought she was invisible and powerless, was mocked and struck by boys who mistook cruelty for strength, only to be shielded by men who carried leather on their backs and storms in their eyes, showing her that dignity is defended not by silence but by courage, that kindness wears many faces, even ones hardened by the road, and that her worth was never diminished by her scars or her steel leg, but elevated by the fact that she survived, endured, and still walked forward. So the keynote of that moment, the lesson that lingers like fire in the chest, is simple yet eternal. True strength is never in the hand that strikes but in hand that shields. True courage is not in mocking the weak, but in lifting them. And true power lies in remembering that humanity is measured not by what we conquer for ourselves, but by how we protect those who cannot stand alone. For when the bullies fled and the bikers sat with her, laughing gently, reminding her that she wasn't broken but brave, the world whispered the truth she had forgotten. She was not defined by loss nor by cruelty, but by the unshakable spirit that even strangers saw was worth defending.